Hey guys, I'm Helena. First of all, I'm so sorry that I wasn't here like the last few weeks. Um, yeah, I wasn't here, obviously not in Munich, and for some reason I had completely inadequate makeup with me for the first 1 or 2 weeks, um, which was so absurdly neon pink that because I see myself while I film these videos, I couldn't look at myself. I was so distracted by my own hideousness, so to say. It was really ugly, and I just couldn't get through with it because obviously I do this freely and I don't write anything in front before making those videos. So if I'm distracted, this is not gonna work. As for last week, how shall I put this? Let's say a face and a hot water bottle exploding are not good together. And it was not pretty. Yeah, so luckily my face looks normal again. So it was basically 3 weeks. Was it 2 weeks or 3 weeks? Three weeks of hideousness. Where literally I couldn't film anything. So I'm sorry for that. Yeah. So yeah, look normal again. Yay! Wonderful. Okay. So Siegfried, third part of the ring, and we're gonna get right into it because obviously Protagonist is very, very easy. In this case it is very easy. In Valkyrie it was a bit different because Brunhilde didn't actually have that much screen time, so to say. She didn't have so much stage time. Siegfried, he's on constantly. There's hardly any moment where he's not on, really. Maybe a bit like when Wotan heavens. Maybe like when Wotan does the usual, oh, in case you missed the first two parts, here's what happened speech in Act 1. And then part 2 of it when he talks to Erda. You might have noticed this, but in case you don't know, Wagner didn't write the ring in consecutive order. So he started with Siegfried, and then Siegfried's death, which is Götterdämmerung today. And then he was like, yeah, no, this is too complicated. We have to like get a bit more into what was going on before, which means, in this case, the tale of Siegfried's parents. And then he was like, yeah, but I didn't explain the thing with the ring. Like, where does this come from? And so he wrote Rheingold. Yeah, so this is why in every single part of this, there's someone just telling what has been going on before. You have this, obviously, it's mostly Wotan, because obviously Wagner himself saw himself in Wotan, so it was kind of as if he told the audience that something happened before and what happened. So anyway, this is basically everything when Siegfried's not on. He's really on most of the time, unless, as I said, it's Wotan and Mime in the first act, or a bit of Wotan and Alberich in the second act. Because as we know, Siegfried is an unknowing child and he's naturally intelligent, but not much more, unfortunately, which causes his death, obviously. And a bit, obviously, in the beginning of the third act when Wotan talks to Erda, but these are all instances when they have to explain what happened before. So as to the audience not go, huh, what are they talking about? And of course he didn't. This is the one day when I don't have my water bottle, not my hot water bottle. I'm cured of that for a while, but my bottle here, and of course now I am in trouble with my speaking. Anyway, so Protagonist is fairly easy in this one. It's Siegfried, obviously. Also, just as a thing, Klaus Florian Vogt is gonna sing Siegfried this year, And I'm really excited to see what he will do if he has like a production tailored to him and not someone else who has a completely different vibe than him, and he has then to do that. And yes, I'm talking about The Last Ring, which was very, very clearly tailored to Andreas Schager, who was the first Siegfried, and he was great. He was a really, really great Siegfried because it was so natural for him, you know? Like, of course he'd be the guy who like kicked an older guy's, what was it, stick, something, away from him. Of course he's that guy, but Klaus Florian Vogt, he isn't that guy. He's too nice for that. So I guess we'll see a more traditional heroic Siegfried this year, because that's just who Klaus Florian Vogt is. Though I'm excited to see, because he's singing 3 roles in the ring. He's singing Loge in Rheingold, he's singing Siegmund in Valkyrie, and he's singing Siegfried in Siegfried and Siegfried in Götterdämmerung. So this is a lot. He's basically going on 12 times in the span of a month, which is much. It's 3 times a week. So, yeah. I think only Andreas Schager, ironically, has more, because he sings Rienzi and they've got, I think, 13 shows. Not shows, but, you know. Anyway. Siegfried Protagonist. So, who's the antagonist? Historically, if we look at like the myths and such, we would probably say it's Fafner, but it's not, because as we all know, there's the thing with it. I can't even talk about this anymore. My voice doesn't want it anymore. About the Jewish knight figures, and that's not Fafner. And also Fafner gets a good death. We talked about this like in the episode we did about in general about death. Yeah, Fafner gets a great death. Mime is like, oh, he's dead. And Fafner's like, oh my god, I'm dead. I will die. And this goes on for quite a while. You always can determine whether Wagner likes a character or not with the way they die. If they get like a 20-minute monologue like Brünnhilde gets, or if it's just, he died. Or they don't get a death at all, like Alberich, like he's not granted a death. But anyway. So I would personally say if we take Siegfried as a protagonist, then definitely Mime would be the antagonist, because he's the one who actively tries to kill Siegfried. Like Fafner is only... He's cursed. He's defending himself. He's defending his treasure, the ring. That's what he does. It's not really, I'm a bad person and I want to kill this guy. No, it's not. He's cursed and he's defending himself. Mime is like, oh yeah, I saw him grow up. I nursed him. Was war's? Als zullendes Kind zog ich dich auf. God, I hate that thing. Because it comes over and over, and I can feel Siegfried growing more agitated and more annoyed with every time that Mime sings. Als zullendes Kind zog ich dich auf, wärmte mit Kleidern den kleinen Wurm. Like, no. Shut up, bro. Anyway. So, Mime is truly, in Siegfried alone, a horrible person. He's really a horrible person. He got this child, probably murdered the mother, we don't know. It's never disclosed, for good reason, but considering that Mime is a Jewish knight figure, and Wotan tells us not to believe... Wagner tells us not to believe anything. He says, we can probably assume that it wasn't the thing that Mime tells us, oh God, I saw this poor woman in the forest, and I helped her, and I helped her give birth, and I was so nice, and then she died. Like, no. Probably not, let's be real. So, Siegfried antagonist, Mime. Siegfried protagonist, Mime antagonist. Very clearly. And yes, if we look at the whole ring for a moment, Mime is really... I'm sorry for Mime in Rheingold, because he really gets treated horribly. But if I look at Siegfried, I'm not sorry for him anymore, because he's really not a good person. He was a misunderstood teacher thing in the last ring, in Bayreuth, obviously. Always when I talk about the ring, it's most probably about about Bayreuth. But still, like, Mime... Feel sorry for him before, don't feel sorry for him in Siegfried. He's, I think, the primary antagonist if we have Siegfried as the protagonist. But, and here now, we're gonna stray away from what we usually do, which is just looking at one. Because now we're going to look at the cause of it all. Now we're going to look at Rheingold and Valkyrie and Siegfried. Because overarchingly, we have like another layer. And I would call Siegfried and Mime in this case, because Mime obviously lives with Siegfried, so there's not that much truly mythological stuff going on there, compared to Wotan and Alberich, aka the Wanderer, and Alberich. So I would say they are the other layer, and yes, we talked about that Wotan's problematic, to say the least, as a protagonist and as the good of it all, but we'll just leave out the good for now, it's just protagonist. So, overarchingly, Wotan is also a protagonist, because obviously he's the puppeteer, you know? He's pulling the strings, he says, yeah, no. But honestly, at this point, he's just there to watch the show. Because he can't really do anything anymore. He just can't say, I want my grandson. Let's stay with grandson for a while for everyone who has not seen the Bayreuth ring. And there is maybe a different... form of incest in the Bayreuth ring. But we'll stay with grandson, which he still is in Bayreuth, but there was maybe another layer of... Let's leave it at that. Horribly enough, I heard recently, just saying this, that I think, or at least it was in that TV show that I saw, that in the state of New York, incest is okay as long as both parties are over 18, which is like gross. Why? Why? Why has no one said, this is weird? Can we, like, what? No. In other words, you just have to set Schwarz's ring, or any ring really. You just have to set it in New York and it's done, basically. Because Fricka's like, yeah, but they are siblings, but they are twins. But Wotan can say, yeah, we're in the state of New York, baby. It's legal, they're 20. Sayonara. No, just leave it at that. Anyway. I have no idea what I just wanted to say. Anyway. Wotan, grandson, Siegfried. Okay, good. So, genau. Wotan is just there to watch the show at this point, basically. So, again, I would say overarchingly, Wotan is the protagonist in this part where there's still a little bit of mythological flair, you know? Because this is getting less and less over the course of the ring. You might have noticed that. You have the Rheingold, which is pure mythology. Just pure. And then you have, on the other hand, you have Götterdämmerung, where there's Waltraute for 26 minutes. And there's Alberich for probably around that time. And this is everything of mythological creatures that's going on in Götterdämmerung. So, yeah, since we're still in that more or less a little bit of mythological realm of Siegfried, I would say there would be a second layer. You have Siegfried and Mime in the kind of mortal world, with Siegfried as a mortal, Mime posing as one, because I don't think that Siegfried even knows that there are different species of human-like creatures. And since he thinks that Mime is his dad, or he was told that Mime is his dad, he would see Mime as a mortal. Human. Clear. And then we have the second layer of like Asgard, or basically the 9 worlds / the other 8 worlds, not Midgard, in which Siegfried and Mime live. And I would say in this case that Wotan's the protagonist and Alberich's the antagonist, even though not as active as Siegfried and Mime are. Yeah. I think that's more or less it for that. You might ask, yeah, where comes Brunhilde? Yeah, but I know that she gets mentioned mostly very early, which is like on DVDs and stuff. I saw in the New York Met ring in the DVD. It was like J. Hunter Morris, Deborah Voigt, and I was like, what? Why is she named as the second one? I mean, Brunhilde is a horrible role in Siegfried. She's terribly high. It's quite absurd. She has to get to that high C quite often. But she doesn't play that big of a role to be mentioned in this protagonist antagonist thing. And so we're gonna just talk very quickly about the good and the evil. And I suppose historically, traditionally, Siegfried would be the good one. And not because he's necessarily really such a good person, because, and I'll be, it's difficult, you know, because I think for you to be a good person, you have to know what evil looks like. And you have to be able to distinguish good from evil, and you have to say, okay, I want to be a good person. I don't want to be an evil person. That's why I trod along this path. But he doesn't know that. He doesn't know good or evil. He just knows nature. And this is why he can be so easily deceived, as we talked about before. He can be very easily deceived because in nature, hardly anywhere, there are creatures able to deceive their own species. There's like crows and ravens who are able to do that, and they prove that. But mostly, animals are really honest. And honesty is neither good nor evil, I think. Because as we know, if you're really honest, it can also hurt people. Seen that often enough. Like if you have a TV show and there's like a spell or a bet or something, when they say, you have to be completely honest, and no one wants complete honesty. No one does. We all want to hear lies now and then. White lies, obviously. Not the big ones. But Siegfried doesn't have that. He just has nature. So he can be completely deceived later by Hagen and by Gunther, and he can't really distinguish good from bad, in my opinion. My opinion, by the way, obviously, always. As someone who had a hot water bottle explode in her face, and by explode I mean that the handle broke off and it fell and the hot water splashed in my face, I should probably not see myself on the moral high ground or on the intelligent high ground. So, again, I think Siegfried's probably the best, but because he's so the good, because he's so unknowing. He cannot deceive because he doesn't know it, but that doesn't make him necessarily good or evil. The evil, again, probably, I would say, it's probably really, if you go into the traditional setting, not something else, but in the traditional setting, it's probably gonna be Mime and Alberich. Primarily Mime because it's focused on Siegfried. And again, als zollendes Kind zog ich dich auf, wärmte mir klein und warm. Yeah. But he still like decides that he wants to kill that child that he fed for years. I mean, it depends on what production you watch, in how old he is. I would probably think, considering that these are the Middle Ages and people were killed very fast, so they had to be adults very fast, I would probably say he's in his mid to late teens. So Mime fed this guy for 16 years, but he still wants to kill him. And I think that's something that Siegfried picks up on. You know what I mean? When you sometimes get vibes from a person that they don't want your best. I think that's why Siegfried doesn't like Mime. There's also the superficial thing where he's like, he looks into a stream and says, I'm beautiful, he's ugly, this cannot be this' son. There is also that. Which is also, again, Wagner telling us that, yeah, we know. He didn't like some people. Have to live with that. And really Mime is, I think, the anti-father. He's the father that really no one wants to have. I think, I wanted to say something about Taylor Swift now, but I won't. You know, again, I think that Siegfried is the good purely because he doesn't know what evil looks like, and he's just being himself, and he's being his natural self. And he cannot decide to purely be evil. You know what I mean? I mean, there's been studies, research that they say when you lie, that there are like 5-6 different areas in your brain are lighting up because you have to make something up on the spot. But when you tell the truth, it's very easy because there's just one area, it's just the truth. You don't have to invent something, you don't have to say, oh, is that logical? But just the truth. So I think that's kind of what Siegfried is like. He's just truthful. And truth is neither, well, it's good, obviously, in the big realm of things, but not in the daily one-to-one, I think. Personally. Anyway, I hope that wasn't too absurd. It probably was, because it always is, and this is why I love doing these videos, because it just helps me to think through stuff, and maybe you can get stuff out of this as well. Also, I don't know when I'm going to do this, but maybe you remember last year that I did this video about my dresses. So I thought about, I don't know if you know her name's Sophie Silva. I think her handle is not Sophie Silva on YouTube. What she does every year is that she has like 31 days, October obviously, of Halloween costumes. So I thought I would do like a similar thing with my dresses, and let's just see how many I have. I don't think it will last for a whole month, but maybe do a short every day, and you can tell me what to wear, or yeah. I mean, I'll probably choose myself anyway, because obviously the thing has to be okay for the occasion too, because Rhinegold's 2.5 hours of sitting, baby. You cannot wear a corset for that long. I did it in the first year that I saw the ring. It was not pretty. It was not very comfortable. And the same goes for Götterdämmerung. You can't really wear something too tight or too restricting unless it's in the dress itself. And then it's okay because the dress doesn't move so much, hopefully. But if you like have to wear a corset or something underneath, then this might be ugly. Anyway, yeah, just wanted to tell you this, and I hope you have a nice day, and be careful of water bottles, and be careful of bright pink blush, because you might look too hideous to see yourself, and yeah, have a nice time. Bye.